Okay, good evening to everybody. Tonight, we're going to the topic under our discussion is the pasuk Lo Seva'aru Eish Chomesh V'Seichen. It's a pasuk in this week's Parshas Vayakhel. And the way we are wording the topic is, "Thou shalt not light the flame of anger within his camp." I want this to be the first of two classes on the subject of kas, of anger. I find this very beneficial for my class because sometimes I say some surprising things and people get angry, so this will hopefully solve that issue. This week's parsha begins with the command of Moshe Rabbeinu to Klal Yisrael to keep Shabbos. Even though we've been commanded about Shabbos countless times already in the Torah, the previous parshas were really discussing the instructions that Moshe Rabbeinu received from God to eventually instruct to the Jewish people. When did he actually instruct those instructions to the Jewish people? In this week's parsha, Vayakhel. Vayakhel, that's why it's repetitive. It's not really repetitive. It's explaining what Moshe then went ahead and commanded to Klal Yisrael. Truma Tetzaveh is discussing what Hashem commanded Moshe to tell the Jewish people. And Vayakhel Pekudah is discussing what Moshe Rabbeinu actually told Klal Yisrael and what Klal Yisrael actually did afterwards. So that's why we have a very repetitive 3 times of the donations of the Mishkan as it's going in that order. What Hashem told Moshe, what Moshe told Klal Yisrael, and what Klal Yisrael actually did. So regarding keeping Shabbos, even though it was discussed already in last week's parsha, Parshas Tetzaveh, nonetheless, it's only in regards to what Hashem told Moshe, and now actually Moshe commanded Bnei Yisrael. Now we know that Shabbos is, even though it only contains one command in terms of malacha, which is a positive and negative command. So in essence, 2 commands of the 613. The negative is thou shalt not do work on Shabbos. The positive is that you shall rest on Shabbos, Shabbosing, Tishbasum, Menucha. The Torah actually doesn't delineate for us how we express or how we fulfill that rest. What is actually meant to be done on Shabbos as a form of rest. The Torah doesn't say. Without the oral tradition, we would simply think sleep 24 hours, as some people do on Shabbos. It means just rest and don't do anything. Sleep. Now, even though it's true, Sheina b'Shabbos Tainug, as the Gemara brings from Shulchan Aruch, that sleeping on Shabbos is a special einik. It's not the whole 24 hours of Shabbos, and that is definitely not the interpretation of thou shalt rest on the Shabbos and thou shalt not perform work, labor on the Shabbos. Another Pshutei Shlomika understanding of not doing work on Shabbos is not doing anything that's too heavy. For example, the Ramban holds that there is an Isra on Shabbos, even though it's not one of the Lamates. Outside of the oral tradition, part of the scriptural understanding of the verses is that you're not allowed to do anything laborious, anything that's very heavy or difficult on Shabbos, you're not allowed to do. So, for example, he would hold, even though I think we can agree, it doesn't say in the Lamates Malachis, or even in the Shulchan Aruch, that you can't carry a heavy case of wine to your Shabbos meal. He would say that if it's too heavy, that's too strenuous, and that would be Mr. Derais. He holds that Muktzah, which really doesn't allow you to move a lot of things around, because if you do move too many things around, you're doing heavy work, that would transgress the literal understanding of the day of rest. But nonetheless, the oral tradition has it that there's 39 malachas that are listed in the Mishnah in Shabbos, page 74a. And from there we have all the halachis and malachis, complex cases of what's permitted and what is forbidden on Shabbos based on that. There are only 2 malachis that are actually hinted to in the Torah, in Scripture. One of them is also related to this week's parsha, not to carry from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. That is hinted to in Scripture when it discusses how Moshe told the Jewish people to stop bringing the items that they had enough donations, stop bringing more. The Gemara learns from the wording there that that's referring to stop carrying from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. Another one of them, which is more explicit, is this week's parsha. It sounds like, as it says, it's telling us, do not light a fire, do not ignite a fire on the day of Shabbos. Now that is one of the 39. There's another 38, but the Torah only mentions this one. So it's strange, and it begs the question, why? Why did the Torah pick out of the oral tradition of the 39 this one malacha to mention that one shall not do? It doesn't say don't cook on Shabbos. It doesn't say don't do bayr on Shabbos. It doesn't say don't build buildings on Shabbos. It doesn't say don't plow. It doesn't say don't plant. It doesn't say don't make clothing. It doesn't say any of that stuff. Any of the 39 except for this one. So what's the reason that it specifically found its place of fame in Scripture, in the actual Torah? So this is what we will be dealing with in the rest of this class. And we will give 11 different explanations. Around 11 different explanations of what it is coming to do, what is coming to teach us. The Das Kanim, which was from the times of Tosfos, Ashkenazi Rishonim, he writes the following. The reason why the Torah warned us against causing a fire more than any of the other malachos is because it doesn't appear so much as a malach. People may say, okay, I keep Shabbos, I don't do malachos, but I only light a match. What's the big deal lighting a match? It takes 2 seconds. That's not a malacha. And because people would treat or look at lighting a fire as not such a big deal, therefore the Torah specifically wrote that in. This is the Das Kanim, again one of the Rishonim. I don't fully understand it, because if I had to choose like a malacha that people think it's not a big deal, it should have said, don't take out your onions from your salad on Shabbos, or something of the like. There's a whole list I can give you of things people don't know. Tanakes tzalachas lefnei ashvicha pama shniya. Clean your plate before you pour a second serving, so you don't cook the leftover. There's so many malachas that people aren't careful, that people don't know. Why are we picking specifically on fire that people would think that this is really not a big deal to light a fire? I'm not sure, but this is his interpretation. He says that people didn't view it as something so severe, especially when we think about it. You have 2 Flintstones, you just scratch them together, sparks come out. So people don't really view it as such a big deal to go ahead and do that, and therefore the Torah had to explicitly mention it. The Ramban has a different explanation, but I think with his explanation we can understand a little better the explanation of the Das Kanim, of why it was necessary for the Torah to explicitly mention this out of the other malachos. Right, the Ramban Nachmanides writes the following. Says the Ramban that the true intent, or the deeper intent, of this pasuk, of this command, is not just fire alone, but to teach us you shouldn't cook on Shabbos. You're not allowed to cook on Shabbos. Now, why does the Torah have to emphasize this? Because people may think the whole idea of Shabbos is having delicious foods. It's Einik Shabbos. So it's a tzarech eichel. Why can't I cook? If a lot of people, they make mistakes in Shabbos, they think if it's for the need of food, it's mutter. Find this all the time in Shir. People think there are very select malachas that we give an exemption if it's for the need of food. But it's very rare and it's only under certain circumstances. But people learn from that as if, oh, it's for the need of food, it's mutar on Shabbos. So he's answered, okay, so just cook on Shabbos for the need of food. Right? It's for the need of food. What's the difference? Cooking is also for the need of food. So cook your cholent on Shabbos, cook your tzainik Shabbos, you're cooking for Shabbos, right? So says the Ramban that since one of the main ideas of Shabbos is having a Shabbos soup, is having a meal, and we also find a precedent on Yantif that we cook. Eichel Nefesh is mutter, so we do all the malachas relating to food on Yantif. So because of this, people can make a mistake and think that Shabbos is the same thing. So of the 39 malachas, the Torah picked this specific one and wrote it down black and white, so nobody should make the mistake and think it's mutter. And he continues, the Colossians are matzati b'medrash abinasim. Eimer lo yisavashkan shosech ben Shabbos lo menema v'yishoim v'yakom esh kolas b'nei Yisrael shamei ani yehi rashai lahadlik lo yisaner latim lo yisacham lasim b'Shabbos tam aloim lo yisavashkan shosech. It says that this pirush of mine, says the Ramban, is based on the medrash abinasim, who writes that Moshe Rabbeinu gathered, it says, right, Vayakhel, he gathered all the Jewish people together, which I mention now, that from there we learn from the term Vayakhel, it is a mitzvah on Shabbos, Lahakel Kehilas. I ever spoke about this on different occasions. There's a mitzvah on Shabbos to gather people together and teach them Torah. It's one of the main purposes of Shabbos. Is Lahakel is public shiur. It's one of the main ideas of Shabbos. So he writes that Moshe Rabbeinu gathered all the Jewish people together. And people thought that just like on Yantav these things are mutter, you're allowed to light a candle, you're allowed to insulate your food, you're allowed to light a fire. So to on Shabbos, Talmud Leimus, therefore Moshe taught them, on Shabbos, these things are not allowed to be done. And this Isser is included in the Isser of Malach. Okay, so this is the second shot that it's coming to exclude Eichel Nefesh. That there's no heter on Shabbos to transgress malachas for the sake of food, even though it's for the sake of Einig Shabbos. The Medrash Kehelis Rabbah records an interesting story to understand, again, to re-emphasize the points of the Das Kanan, that this wasn't like such an obvious thing that people would assume that it's, you're not allowed to light fire on Shabbos, and it's also not one of the easiest things to keep. The story is the following. This is again from the Medrash Kehelis and Medrash Rabbah Rus. There was a certain king named Adrianus. I have no idea who he was. I didn't look him up. Adrian. How many were there?
Adrian was the one who's.
How many Hadrians were there?
He's the guy who's wasn't he the one who's Judah?
With Judah Nasi, no. That's Asposinis.
No,
it's not.
Antoninus.
Huh? Antoninus, yeah. Yeah, not Asposinis, Antoninus, yeah. But not Hadrian, not Andreas. Not Andreas. Anyways, whoever this king was, he lived in the times of Yeshua ben Hanani. So there was a story with Andrianus HaMelech, and here the Medrash gives him a nice little curse. Sheneshchaku atzmoisav, may his bones be shattered. I don't know what the guy did, but so obviously they didn't like him too much. Shamal Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania. He told Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, Ani Yosek Adam Moshe Rabchem. I am even greater than Moshe, your teacher. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania. He said to him, what do you mean? How can you claim to be even greater than Moshe Rabbeinu? Eshivu and Dionus. I actually learned this from your Torah that I am greater than Moshe. As it says in Kehelis, Ki lekelev chai hu toiv min ha'arya hameis. A live dog is better than a dead lion. Says Shlomo Melech. He says, if so, I'm alive. Moshe's dead. I'm greater. By Rab Chemes, your teacher is dead. So therefore, it's found that I'm greater than him. Amar Shul ben Chanan. Shul ben Chanan is back. You are the king, I guess the king of Rome, wherever he was. Since you're the king, are you able to put out an edict, a decree that it's forbidden for any man in your kingdom to light a fire for the next 3 days? He said, of course, I'm the king, of course I can. Shalach Andrianus the Hikriz, so he sent out an edict of the kingdom to all the different communities, and he said that it is forbidden for 3 days. Nobody's allowed to light a fire in their home. The first night, Balayla Rishon, Allah Mechshul ben Hananya, they were, looking at the scores of what's going on, of people listening and not listening. They went up to a very high building on the first night. Al Echad Agagos, on one of the tall roofs. And they saw from a distance, they saw smoke. That's a sign of a fire. From one of the chimneys, smoke was coming out. Yeshua said to him, what is this? Who's lighting a fire and releasing smoke? Right? Didn't you give an edict that for 3 days people shouldn't light their fire? Amalei said back to him, I did a whole investigation on this individual home that had the smoke coming out. And I was told that the person living there is ill, and they told him, the doctors told him he needs to drink something hot, and therefore they turned on the fire. Amalei Yeshua said back to him, may your spirit be tipach rucha is basically a statement of may your hot air be burst, may your arrogance be lowered. But even while you're still alive, you're the king, you're still alive. They transgressed your edict. And you think in your heart that you're greater than Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu told us in our Torah, thou shalt not light a fire on Shabbos. Until today we keep it. And there's no Jew who will be brazen to transgress this prohibition even after his death. So that's how he showed him that Moshe Rabbeinu is greater than him, as his decrees aren't kept, and Moshe Rabbeinu, after thousands of years, it's still kept. The Maharsha, he explains the pasuk the following: Averech Drosh. He says it means like this. Don't cause that I will need to set fire amongst your communities on Shabbos. Not a command. Don't light a fire. But don't make Hashem do this. And he explains the following. We know fires are very dangerous, destroy property, and in worst case scenarios, people die. Now, a fire is even worse on Shabbos, because the halacha is that if a fire breaks out on Shabbos and there is no threat to any human life in the vicinity, then you have to let the fire burn. There's no allowance on Shabbos to extinguish a fire for the sake of saving property, saving items, even something very precious. It's forbidden just to extinguish a fire. The Rambam writes the Lashon, even if the entire country will burn down, you cannot extinguish a fire on Shabbos. So a fire going on, igniting on Shabbos is something very, very damaging to the town, to the area. The Poil today, the accepted directive, the rabbinical directive is that if there's a fire, you put it out. That's the accepted rabbinical directive. No, not if you have like a candle that's just sitting there and you're like, well, maybe something will happen. Maybe they have like angels that shoot out and go places. Obviously, I'm not talking about a person whose imagination is and anxieties are taking advantage of it. I'm talking about when there's a fire that can get out of control. Okay, I'm not talking about a candle that's lit. A fire, something that you do not want to get ignited, has now been ignited, and this can cause the spread of a flame. In such a case, the ruling today is that you put it out right away. Don't think twice, just put it out. Fires can spread beyond control in less than 2 minutes. I'm gonna finish and explain the halacha. I'll take questions. The reason for this is because today we're not anymore so isolated and secluded from each other. Meaning that if one home catches fire, because we have central gas, which has connecting gas lines between different buildings or homes, because we have electricity that is connecting electricity between the different buildings and homes. The fire can all cause a sakana in any of those places, and we don't have the ability to let everyone know to get out. So because of that, because of these severe issues, which are recent developments of modern times, therefore the pile, the rabbinical directive is that if there's a fire, you can't be machna, you have to put it out. Now, this is in a case of where this chashash is going to get out of control. Let's say, a match fell on the floor. Okay? A lit match fell on the floor. What's a secret? A lit candle fell on a floor, on a tiled floor. What's the danger? There's no danger. So obviously that's not a fire. That's not an uncontrollable, potentially uncontrollable flame. However, anytime something has caught fire, the tablecloth has caught fire, anything like that, we don't clear out these things because we don't know how flammable things are and are not. We look at our walls, we think they're concrete, and before you know it, they have one in them that they catch. So we can't take chances, and the halacha is that we put out the fire. In all cases where there's a chashash. Technically, the way that you're supposed to put it out when you're not allowed to put it out is by surrounding it with water, meaning like bottles of water. But as I said, we don't have to do this because once a conflagration has begun, it's going to be considered a very serious fire hazard, and we put it out. But in a situation that there is no hazard for anybody else, and it's just this isolated room that will get burnt, and I'm the only one in it, I leave and I have to look at it and get burnt. That's only if there is no chance of it spreading. If there's any chance of it spreading, which is the case in 99.9% of cases today, then a person would have to put up 5 jobs. Yeah, want to say something? What's that?
No, that's okay.
So going back in the day, what was accepted is that once a fire broke out in one home, there was a certain amount of time that the whole community had to get themselves ready to get out of the other homes and escape. So the first reaction wasn't necessarily to put it out, but to follow the halacha that you even have to let the whole town burn down, as everyone heard the bells, everyone had enough time to leave. Also, let's not forget the fire extinguishing methods was not as sophisticated and advanced, even though it's still pretty old-fashioned. It wasn't as advanced as it is today. And because of that, there's also very little chance to be able to do something to control it. Bottom line, says the Marsha, when Chas v'Shalom people desecrate Shabbos, it causes that the fires happen on Shabbos, and therefore, according to Allah, you have to let the person has to let his property get destroyed. So Hashem is telling us first, keep Shabbos, guard Shabbos, 6 days a week you work, on the 7th day you rest, and by doing so, you will have the blessing or the guarantee or the promise there will be no fires in your settlements. The Mayam Luez, he writes a very simple reason behind why, this is reason number 5, if anybody's been counting. Very simple reason for why the Torah mentions this Isser. And that is that the Torah wanted to give it a double punishment. It's meaning like this. We often find in the Torah a certain command repeated again and again and again and again and again, as if somebody was hard of hearing. Why does the Torah do that? So it's not because anyone is hard of hearing, and it's not because the Torah wants people to review. Let's review the commands that we repeat a number of times. But rather because the Torah is coming to emphasize how severe this specific prohibition is. And to emphasize its severity, it repeats it again and again. Now, this is not just a matter of to let us know how severe it is, but as well in terms of halacha, that it would add the amount of transgressions if a person transgressed it. So if it says in the Torah twice to keep Shabbos, a person doesn't keep Shabbos, transgresses now 2 licenses, 2 negative commands as opposed to just 1. And so to here says the Mamlukas, that when it writes the issue of lighting a fire, in addition to the prohibition of the general requirement to rest on Shabbos and the 39 malachas, which includes lighting a fire, it's coming to teach us that a person transgresses 2 lavin if he transgresses the lighting of the fire on Shabbos. One is the general prohibition of resting, the requirement to rest and not to do malacha, and the second is this. That's to emphasize the severity. Now, we find often in the Torah that the Mefarshim, they explain the Chumash in their own understanding and their own ways that are not always what is explained in Chazal, meaning in the Talmud or the Medrash. Rashi, for example, does a lot of the work of recruiting or bringing out the Medrash and the Mamari Chazal on the Psukim, but that's not his job. Rashi's job is not to explain the Psukim according to Medrash and according to Chazal. His job is to explain it according to Pshuta Shalika, so everything's runs smoothly. If he needs Chazal for that, he'll use what they teach us. If what they teach us doesn't really fit in, he'll give his own shot. And that's with a lot of the Mefarshim. But nonetheless, in this case, we find that Rashi, on this pasuk, writes what it says in the Gemara in Sanhedrin as to why the Torah, this is a 6th explanation of why the Torah writes and takes them both and takes this Isser out of the 39 brachos. Rashi writes the following: Yesh merabeseinu oyrim havara lelav yotzes, v'yesh merabeseinu oyrim lechalik yotzes. Right, this was in Sunday's Chitas. What does Rashi mean? What is the intent of this statement? So understand this, you have to go into the Gemara in Sanhedrin 35b. There's explained as follows. The B'Yasi says lelav yotzes, which means as the following. Each one of the Lamates Malachis, if a person transgresses them, then they have a penalty. They have a 3-level penalty, 3 levels. Level 1 is if there are witnesses, and there was azhara, there was warning, which is skila. Anyone in the Lamates Malachis, it's skila. If there was witnesses and azhara, which is very rare. It's very rare that they would actually stone someone for not keeping Shabbos because a lot of conditions had to be fulfilled. First, you had to have 2 kosher witnesses to what he was doing. The witnesses had to go over to him and tell him, we will be witnesses to testify what you are doing against you about what you are doing. And he must acknowledge that and say, I know what I'm doing, I know the severity, I know what you're going to do, and I don't care. And then within about 2 to 3 seconds, he has to do the malacha. So it's actually kind of hard. You have to really try hard to get into the situation. Even if you want to transgress Shabbos, it's kind of hard to get into the skila parameter of punishment. The next one, if there's no skila because of one of the lack of the requirements, is kares. The skila is in place of kares, meaning that when a person gets skila, so that instead of kares, and he doesn't get cut off. But if a person doesn't get the capital punishment of skila, then chas v'shalom, he falls under the second status, which is kares. This is different than Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur transgressions is always kares. It's no skila on Yom Kippur. And of course, the third level is someone who did it b'shoigeg, someone who did it without knowledge that this is an isser, or someone who did it without knowledge that today is Shabbos, forgot today is Shabbos. He didn't do it intentionally as a transgression. So such a person will bring a carbon chatas. So Rabbi Yossi says, the Lav Yatzis, that the reason why the Torah took out of the Lamites Malachas, the Malacha of lighting a fire, is to teach us that this Malacha is actually demoted, not as severe as the other Malachas. All the other Malachas, someone transgresses them, and they have the three levels, Skila, Kares, Chatas, but lighting a fire has been demoted, the Lav Yatzis, it's only a negative command. So a person would only get lashes. All the negative commands in Torah, the punishment for them is lashes if a person transgresses, but he doesn't get anything else, just lashes. It's no capital punishment. That is Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Rabbi Nassan's opinion, this is again in Rashi, explaining Rashi, L'chalik Yatzis, it's coming to differentiate. Differentiate what? So this is a little deeper of an explanation. A nigla, and it means the following. We don't have the base of Mikdash now, so we are not in the realm of thinking towards karbanos. However, in temple times, and when the temple will be rebuilt, we will have karbanos in the forefront of our minds in all different types of occasions. A mother gives birth. Wow, now we have to think about bringing the carbon, the carbon of the Yeledis to the base of Mikdash. If somebody, when the holidays come, we have to bring the three karbanos, or carbon Re'iyah, carbon Simcha, etc. And there are also carbon chatases that have to be brought in case someone transgresses. One of the loisa says, one of the negative commands that receive malchus. They need to bring a carbon chatas if they transgress. Now, what happens if Mashiach now comes and someone says, I see now the truth. I've lived a lie my whole life. I want to do tshuva. How many sheep do I have to bring? How many karbanos do I have to bring for my entire career of Shabbos transgressing? Do we say, how does it work? Do we say that all Lamates Malachis is like one Isser? Because they're all under rest on Shabbos, don't do Malach on Shabbos. So if you did all 39, it would be the same as if you did one. You only bring one carbon chatas. So if, let's say on the market every carbon costs $500. So the person who did all 39 versus the person who did one, just bring only one carbon $500. Or do we say that no? Every malacha is considered its own sin with its own carbon. So if a person transgressed all 39, he has to then calculate 39 times every Shabbos he transgressed. He thought Mashiach came and won the lottery, then he gets the karbanos bill, he realizes he's in huge debt. Similar to taxes, right? So this teaching, says Rabbi Nassan, this pasuk is teaching us the fact that the Torah picked one of the malachas and explicitly wrote it is to teach us every malach is viewed individually. So even if one transgressed two malachas, he brings two carbon copies. Three carbon copies. 39 is 39 carbon copies. Okay, so the Toldos, that's an explicit Mishnah in first Masechet and Shabbos, in first Perek and Shabbos, in which we learn that you actually aren't liable for a Tolda and an us. So let's say if a person, let's give an example. Let's say a person made himself a grape juice. He squeezed grapes on Shabbos, and this is the rice. He made himself grape juice, fresh grape juice, and at the same time he also squeezed some milk from his cow for his fresh milk in his coffee. Okay, so he did the same malach or dash one is an Av, one is a Tolda, he would not have to bring two Karbanos, only one Karban, because they're all part of the same principle Malacha. So that we agree with that. You get off with the subcategories. If you transgress a subcategory and a category, you still only bring one. But if you transgress different categories, a subcategory of one and a category or another, or a subcategory of another, then you have to bring two. That's the Chiddush, says Rabbi Nassan, that you have to bring a carbon for each one of the 39 malachos. Now, interestingly, we would think, based on this, that when Mashiach's going to come and everyone's going to want to do tshuva for all their sins, then all the people who were not from, and now are becoming from Baruch Hashem, are doing tshuva, they're going to have to do a calculation of all the 39 malachos they transgressed. To every Shabbos, they're going to be bankrupt, and they're going to have to wait forever to bring all their karbanos. It'll be thousands of karbanos. They're going to be in Yerushalayim for years, bringing their karbanos, the carbon katas. It's one every time. It's insane. And we may think based on that, it's a good idea to already start a farm in Yerushalayim, a nice big farm. You'll have first dibs. You'll be the first one to be able to sell. You make a lot of money. However, the Yidden who are from Baruch Hashem and keep Shabbos, okay, here and there we stumble because we don't know, right? Chatos is shaking, we don't know. Didn't know this was a malacha. Okay, didn't know that taking out onions is a problem from a salad. He didn't write some malacha deraisa bayra, but he didn't know, so he brings a carbon. How often does it happen? So we'll have very few. The truth is, the Rambam writes the exact opposite. The Rambam in Mishnah Torah writes the following. Someone who knows what Shabbos is, knows the date of Shabbos, but doesn't have the accurate knowledge of what malachas are mutar, what malachas are asur, then he has to bring a carbon for every transgression of every Shabbos. So, meaning if he, for the last 30 years, plucked his onions from the salad because he doesn't like them, throw them in the garbage, a protest to his wife, then that means 30 years of karbanos 30 times 12. For every Shabbos, 30 times 52, I'm sorry. For every Shabbos that he did it. It's a lot of karbanos. That's just on the onion. Okay?
And even the shogun.
That is right. No, it's clearly B'shegeg. Which Jew is going to really do it amazing? Most from Yidden who transgress Shabbos, it's B'shegeg. You know, even if they were told in a shir that it's us, you know, the attitude sometimes is, well, everybody does it. My dad didn't teach me this. I don't know, he's just being machmir. It's a shegeg attitude. It's not really that he really says, you know, I keep Shabbos, but this is too much. I'm not going to keep this. Most people, they're elachim, they want to keep Shabbos, but they don't understand that simple, basic actions can be literally a biblical transgression. So what the Rambam says that is true for someone who is from. But someone who's not from, someone who doesn't know the Kedusha of Shabbos, doesn't know what Shabbos is, doesn't know the difference between Shabbos and the week, as a Tinnik Shenishba, then he is only obligated on one carbon per malacha for all the Shabbos of his life. So, if in his onion plucking career from his salad that he did for 40 years on Shabbos, didn't know what Shabbos was, and now Mashiach comes and he reads about Judaism and he's so excited and he does tshuva and he's regretful, remorseful, etc. And he wants to make amends and bring the karbanos. He's going to go there. All the non-religious people are going to be online. They're going to ask the kohen and how many karbanos they have to bring. He's going to say just 39. What do you mean just 39? But this from guy over here, he has about 500 cows. How is that possible? How does he have 500 and I have 39? So he says, listen, when you grow up, you'll understand. When you learn Rambam, you'll understand. But this is the difference in if you know what Shabbos is, if you don't know the Malach, or if you don't know what Shabbos is. So this idea of L'chalik Yatzah is learned from, this is the two Pirushim Rashi brings. One of the Tanaim say that it's teaching us, instead of holding the malach of igniting a fire, to only being prohibited, it's only receiving lash is allowed. And the second opinion is coming to teach us that every malacha is viewed independently in terms of the carbon practice. We're now going to get to another Talmudic explanation, which is going to explain to us, and is going to be quite lengthy in discussion. The same Gemara in this discussion asks the following question: are we allowed to have court cases and mete out punishment, as was the verdict of the court case on Shabbos? Now, the halacha is, as the Gemara states, and as reported in the Shulchan Aruch, that there is a rabbinical prohibition. There's a rabbinical prohibition to judge on Shabbos. But this is referring to monetary cases. So we never have Bezdin is never in session on Shabbos in terms of a court case, which is today all monetary cases. And the reason for that is it's only rabbinical, is because we're afraid you may come to write. We're dealing with court cases, there's a clerk, there's people who have to write information, so we're afraid that the decree that people may come to write down details of the hearing, and therefore the Chachamim prohibited having court cases, monetary court cases on Shabbos. And this is what's ruled in Shulchan. However, what about capital cases? Obviously, today we don't have such a thing, but in times of Sanhedrin, were they allowed to have capital cases on Shabbos? So this is back and forth in the Gemara here, and the Gemara establishes, bottom line, that it is forbidden to give a capital punishment on Shabbos. But chenek, sreifa, or any of the capital punishments are forbidden on Shabbos. And the Rambam and the Chinuch both list this as one of the negative commands of the 365 negative commands of the 613. Meaning that they list part of the Taryag Mitzvahs that in addition to the command that thou shalt not do work on Shabbos, they list an additional one, that thou shalt not give out punishments on Shabbos.
Execute it or give at least pay the steps out.
So, yeah, right, to actually execute the punishment, execute the person. And we'll see if it's only an execution. Well, that's discussed there. It says that it's also, that may be a problem because you come to write on Shabbos. But that would only be the Rabban. We're saying deraisa would be deraisa to actually deliver the punishment on Shabbos. That would be an actual issue deraisa. And some Rishonim learn that included in this issue deraisa is not just capital punishment, but even lashes, malchus. But even malchus, which is not capital punishment, is us. In other words, like this: we would think that on Shabbos that capital punishment, which is a mitzvah in the Torah, would push off Shabbos. It's a mitzvah in the Torah to give out the punishments in the Torah. It's assessing. So we may think that Shabbos is an exception and it would be permitted. So what does the Torah teach us? The Torah teaches us in this pasuk that no, there's no exception. Even on Shabbos, it's forbidden even to give out capital punishments. Some of the Rishonim extend this and say it's not just capital punishments, but even lashes, which, as we know, causing a wound to any creature on Shabbos is a biblical malach. The whacking with that belt, I'm sure, caused many, many wounds. And so the Torah is teaching us that don't think that because it's a mitzvah of capital, of a punishment that you're meant to give, that therefore it's mutter. Rather, how do they interpret it? Don't do the punishment of Sreifa on Shabbos, and that includes all the other punishments as well. So don't give out any punishment on Shabbos.
Why do they sit on Shabbos?
Well, that's the question. May they? That's right.
So, not Shabbos?
Yeah, but according to halacha, so let me explain to you something. I know that in today's day and age, in the court system, and unfortunately also in the Jewish court system, the Bezdin, a court case can go on forever. Months, years, it's insane. In Torah, in biblical times, in Sanhedrin times, You go in that day, you get a psak that day. There's an isser what's called, you're not allowed to be masha the din, you're not allowed to delay giving the judgment. And the judgment has to be given right away. The fact that you have batei dinim that they hear a case and they won't give it back to you for 6, 7, 8 months is a terrible thing. It's the greatest. They have to give the judgment right away. Now, so if a case was claimed to them on Shabbos, they have to deal with it right away if it were to be allowed. So the Gemara tells us that no, it's forbidden to execute the punishment on Shabbos, and therefore you can't even hear the case on Shabbos because it's an isser to hear the case and then delay it. So you have to hear it on Sunday. Based on this, the Alter Rebbe writes in the Shulchan Aruch, and so is written in the Magen Avraham and other Poskim, that practically today, even though we don't have capital punishment, from this we learned that it's usher to give any punishments on Shabbos. And they write, and since it's usher to give any punishments on Shabbos, therefore it's forbidden to capture and incarcerate, arrest a criminal who is liable for a punishment, in order so he does not run away. And this applies even if the criminal may become a fugitive if his incarceration is delayed. Rather, if he runs away, we have no responsibility. That's the ruling in all the poskim. Oh, very good. So you can say, so a person can use this, a criminal will use this as an advantage. He'll rob homes on Shabbos. And to say, hey, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm a frum guy. I wear a shtreimel, but I rob homes on Shabbos. That's all. You can't hit me because I can't give punishments on Shabbos. What do you do? Scream me. I'm going to rob you anyways. And you can't call the cops because you can't give punishments. You can't incarcerate me. You can't arrest me. So the Aruch HaShulchan explains that this very specifically refers to not this crimes of society, murder, or robbing, or any crimes that in society you can call the police and get someone arrested. That obviously you can do. You can't. It depends if it's a robber that there's a chance that you may hurt somebody. Then obviously you can call the police. But if you know that it's someone that can't harm a fly, but he just wants to rob, then you can't be mechal Shabbos for that necessarily. But no, there's no issue to incarcerate them. You can incarcerate them. The issur, it only applies to what type of sins? Sins that back in the day, in the areas where Jews had autonomy, they were able to give the punishments and incarceration even for spiritual sins. Somebody, he was caught eating not kosher food on Shabbos. We're going to put him in prison and give him lashes after Shabbos. No, you can't put him in prison on Shabbos. He's not a threat to society. He's not a threat to anybody. So in such a situation, we apply this halacha where we don't give out punishment on Shabbos. Based on this, the Zohar says, and this is recorded in a number of poskim, including the Bach and the Alter Rebbe, that not only down here is there no punishment on Shabbos, but even in Shamayim, and that's why Gehenim is on vacation on Shabbos. All the people that are sent to Gehenim, purgatory, Shabbos is their day off. They don't stay there on Shabbos. And we find a number of halachas recorded based on this. Since Hashem follows His own Torah, so Hashem also follows it. The fire of Gehenim doesn't work on Shabbos. The fire is turned off. Everyone out of the oven. Just like down here, Hashem commanded us, don't do capital punishment of burning, which from there we include. This is their rights to give out any capital punishment, and some say even lashes me, so you can't even in prison. So too in heaven, there's no punishments in Shabbos. Shabbos is a day where everyone's free. Yom Shekulah Shabbos. We have a few halachas recorded in Shulchan Aruch based on this. Number one, it says we are very careful not to drink water from the tap during Bein Hashmashos of the entrance and leave of Shabbos. Because the neshamas who leave Gehenna, where's the first place they're going to go? They were burning up over there for the last 6 days. Where are they going to jump? Thirsty. They're hot. Where are they going to jump? In the lake. If you were in a sauna for 6 days straight and you saw a pool in front of you, where would you be your first location? The pool. You jump in the pool. So it says that all the neshamas in Gehenna, they go to the, obviously his own spiritual terms, right? They're not saying that people are diving from heavens into the oceans. But spiritual terms, they flow, they go into the spiritual root of the bodies of water to cool off. And therefore, by Bein Hashmashos, we are warned not to drink from the tap. So if you have water on the table, you can drink that. So let's say you made Kiddush early. You made Kiddush before Shkia. Now it's Shkia, you want to have a drink. Don't open your tap and have a drink. Don't use a filtering service, a filter from the sink, and have a drink through that during Bein Hashmashos. Only pre-drawn water. So Bein Hashmashos of the entrance of Shabbos, because that's when they're cooling off in the 6 days. Now what are they going to do? They know the cycle already. They know right after Shabbos where they're heading back into the furnace for another 6 days. So what are they going to do before they enter the sauna again? Go for a swim. So again, by Bein Hashmashos of the leave of Shabbos, the neshamas go.
Just tell that to somebody.
As I said before, this is all spiritual. This is all spiritual. But nonetheless, the physical corresponds to the spiritual. So if they're jumping into just like down here, water has a cooling effect. Its spiritual root in heaven is a cooling effect of these neshamas. I'm just trying to make it a little humorous, but the halacha really is that you're not allowed to take water. And the reason is because when you take water, you are stealing from their pool. They need this water to cool off. And it says that the neshamas from Gehenna get angry. We know who's in Gehenna. We don't want to start up with those guys. So, because they're not jumping in your bottle. There's not enough room in there.
This is logical.
What do you mean a body of water? That's where a body of water is a certain. What do you mean? It's connected. Where do you think the water is coming from? The water is a body. It's all connected to a body of water, of course. It's all coming from reservoirs. It's not just sitting. The water isn't in your faucet, and that's it. It's connected.
I've been religiously doing this ever since I'm a kid, and this is how I was brought up. But I used to thought it's scary. Like you don't drink water by Shalosh Shudas.
Well, it depends when you're having Shalosh Shudas. It's only Bein Hashmashos of Shalosh Shudas.
But it's like, but why is it, or is just somebody along the way made it up that if you can't rape someone, then
it's not made up. It's recorded in Poskim. Yeah.
Why is that better?
I guess they don't like additives. They're not into all the fruits and additives. I don't know. That's what it is. Yes, there is something to it. But in general, we try to avoid drawing any of the water, especially during the Hashmashos of the leave of Shabbos, because the neshamas are getting ready to go back in and they need to cool off again. And when we take that water, we are causing them to have a lack of that water, and that gets them such. There's a sakana, so we're very careful in this and not to drink water during Bein Hashmashos, drawn water during Bein Hashmashos. Another halacha we find is not to do melacha, says the Zohar, until after Ma'ariv and Uvalat Tzim is said in Shul, as the neshamas don't return to Gehenna until after the congregation finishes Ma'ariv. And if somebody does malacha before then, it's considered as if causing the neshamas to have to return early. So the Zohar says, therefore, based on Torah brings in the Shulchan Aruch, this, by the way, is for men, not for women. Women don't have to worry about this. This is for men, that men who have a minyan that they daven by, even if one week they're not davening by that minyan, they have to wait till their normal minyan concludes by hinayam to do malacha, biblical malacha, because of the sakana. I was once in a shul, And right after Shemana Esrei of Nairud, the Gabbai was accustomed to take out the remote control and put down the slideshow for the Rebbe video. And I went over to him, and the first time I saw him do this, I told him, "What are you doing? It's against Shulchan Aruch. You're not afraid of the Zohar. You're not afraid of the Neshamis getting upset that you're breaking Shabbos early." He tells me, "I've been doing this for years. Nothing ever happened." It's halacha. So he said, "Speak to the Rav." So I went over to the Rav of the shul. And he said, "What do you want from me? I've been telling him to stop doing this forever. To do it afterwards." And lo and behold, 5 minutes later, when it comes time, or however long later it comes time to actually turn it on, he's pressing the remote control. Nothing's turning on. Pressing, not working. And there was no video that Motzei Shabbos. It didn't work. He's like, "Did you do something?" "I didn't do anything. It's the Neshamas." And that was the last time he did this. After that Shabbos, Baruch Hashem, he would always make sure, I was always looking, he never would come near it until after Kaddish was finished. They said the Kaddish, and then he would zoom to it and open it up and set it. I had nothing to do with it, but I can't guarantee one of the Neshamas went into trouble. But this is a case, as we just see, this is another case example where that there's no Gehenna on Shabbos, and they return after Shabbos today. So there's different things that we're careful about. So one of the reasons why we smell the besamim, one of the reasons reported is because of this, that we need to, our souls are saddened that now all these people have to return to Gehenna, and therefore we smell spices to revive us. And there's a few reasons why there's a general depression on Motzei Shabbos, but this is one of them. Let's now take this information and apply it to chinuch. Is a parent allowed to, or should he educate his children on Shabbos? We just said before, the Torah is telling us there's no punishment on Shabbos, right? So can a parent educate his children on Shabbos? Now, if the answer is no, this is something that we have to guard as a secret until the children become parents, right? So they don't know about this. So there is a discussion in the Poskim regarding if it is permitted to trap a human on Shabbos. You know, one of the Lamatas Malachis is trapping. You can't trap an animal. Can you trap a human? If I have a friend running away, can I run and catch him? If I have a child who's being disobedient, can I chase him into his room and lock it? Or is that considered trapping? So this is a real discussion in the Poskim. And the Avnei Nezer writes, based on Tosfos, that there is an actual prohibition to trap a human being. Therefore, according to him, a person should avoid locking his children in their rooms on Shabbos. Or any day.
Yeah. She's the expert.
No timeouts on Shabbos. No.
Or you can put him in the room, just can't lock it. Give him an escape route. Practically, we don't rule this way. Halacha l'maisa is that it's mutter. Halacha l'maisa is that it's mutter. There's no trapping by humans, but nonetheless, and it is mutter to discipline children on Shabbos. The Isser, the Reis, and the Rabbanan is regarding giving out punishment of society. It's not talking about chinuch. It's not talking about father to child, which is a mitzvah. The Rabbanan of being mechanech your children, that applies on Shabbos as well. So practically, there is no Isser on Shabbos to discipline a child. However, a few points. Point number one is that it's possibly an Isser deraisa to spank a child on Shabbos. Why? As if the child gets a bruise as the result of the spank, which is no guarantee. Depends on where the spank happened, what part of the body, how delicate that area was, how hard, and sometimes we misjudge the force. Bottom line is, if it causes a bruise, it's an issur d'oraisa. The biblical prohibition to cause a bruise to a living creature on Shabbos. So if a person spanks a child on Shabbos, he's entering a chashash of doing an issur d'oraisa, and then certainly spanking on Shabbos is no good. There's many other disciplinary measures. On Shabbos, this definitely cannot be used. Furthermore, even those disciplinary measures which don't involve using the hand on Shabbos should not be done. And I'll explain why. The Mefarshim explained, the Chinuch, when he writes the Mitzvah Deraisa, Isser Deraisa, giving punishment on Shabbos, he writes, what's the reason? As the Torah wanted to give the world a day off, a free day, a letting go day, once a week. That's the purpose of Shabbos, is to alleviate people of gevura, of severities. So there's no Gehenna on Shabbos, we don't punish the criminals on Shabbos. It's to give we don't kill animals and insects. And think about it. As a Jew, these ants that I see in front of my house are very lucky, because they would be dead if it's not Shabbos. I have to now make sure to walk like this, or even I can't leave my house if I have an ant trail that's very thick and long, and the only way out of my house is stepping on it. Stay in my house all the time, because in order not to kill them. So literally, there are a lot of bugs and insects owe their lives to the Torah. So too regarding children, it's recorded in Svarim that so too a person should try to avoid having to give out punishment and disciplinary measures on Shabbos. You have 6 days a week to do it. Shabbos is a day that everyone should feel. It's a day of Kaddish, a day of freedom, a day that everyone is considered holy, and even people who are deserving of punishment have it delayed until later, just like in biblical times. The story that's told over by Rabbi Tversky from, I believe he's a Tversky, lives in Crown Heights. He's a Rav of a shul in Crown Heights. You know what I'm referring to? He works in he's a Rebbe in Oli Torah.
He's his brother.
Right, he's Rabbi Shansky's brother. Exactly. He's married to an Ashkenazi. So he told over the following story that he heard from one of his congregants. So one of his congregants told him that when he grew up in the 50s in Crown Heights, and he was what they call a shababnik or a shovav, a very wild child. And at the age of 16, he was already living on the streets, thrown out of his house. Crown Heights. Back then, Crown Heights was not only a Lubavitch community. You had many different types of people, from, not from, and many different affiliations of Jewry lived there. His family wasn't Lubavitch, but as many families were not, but they had the greatest respect for the Rebbe. In any event, he was a troubled child, and one of the main days that he used to get into issues with his father was on Shabbos. Father was doing what it says in the beginning of Parshas Vayakhel, Sheishes Yamim Tavid, 6 days a week you work, so he was never home. But when was he home? On Shabbos, when he didn't work. But evidently he didn't continue reading the Pasuk, as he was tired, cranky, he would get on the Shabbos table, and any child that would misbehave or do anything not to his liking, he would give out very severe and harsh punishments. And eventually this created a cycle of disconnect between him and his parents, and he was having his own issues. Bottom line is that at 16 years old, he was thrown out of the house, was not a film boy. And his father and mother were at loss of what to do, and they received advice right to the new Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Rebbe was, even in the early days prior to being known as a great miracle worker, which he is, was more known for his common sense. The Rebbe had a lot of common sense, and just, aside for just giving a bracha or affecting a spiritual change in the person, the Rebbe gave very common sense advice. So they wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe wrote back to them that they didn't mention anything about the Shabbos experience. They just wrote in general what to do about this child. And the Rebbe wrote back to them that they should place great effort in shining their Shabbos experience for their family. So we saw the Rebbe touched right on the sore point, and the family, the parents, started investing tremendously in the Shabbos day and Shabbos night. They would sleep. They first of all took a nap on Erev Shabbos so they can be awake, right? A person is tired and sleepy. That's one of the great instigators of not having so much patience. So first he would take a nap on Erev Shabbos, even though he came back from work, and he would make sure to prepare Dvar Torah, and he would make sure to give all the children whatever they wanted. Every child would pick one of their delicacies that they enjoyed. He bought new dishes. They really enhanced Shabbos tremendously. There was a total turnover in the home. And most importantly, there were no sinners on Shabbos. No one got disciplined. No one got yelled at. No one got punished on Shabbos. Everyone knew after Shabbos something may happen. There's a calculation. There's a cheshbon. But on Shabbos, everyone was holy. Everyone was a holy brother. And this is how they started leading the Shabbos meal without the wayward child who was not home. He was kicked out of the house. It was now mutual. The son didn't want to go back. After a few weeks of this happening, the son meets one of his sisters in the street, and he says, "No, what's happening at home?" He says, "You have no idea. Dad, it has completely changed, and Shabbos is so amazing. We talk, we fagrein together, we sing, we have all these delicious delicacies. You have to come try it out." Bottom line is that he decided, to come home for a Shabbos, and one Shabbos after the next Shabbos. And this individual is the individual telling the story to Rabbi Torsky. So this is me. This happened to me in the 1950s. And so we see the power of Shabbos on the Jewish neshama, especially if it's done properly, as we said, when we keep We're now going to move on to our eighth. We have a few more until we get to anger. We have two more until we get to anger. Two short ones. Our eighth explanation of the pasuk. The Magid Meisharim was written by the Beis Yosef of Yosef Karo, and it includes the instructions of his angelic teacher, according to Parshas. We like viewing the Beis Yosef of Yosef Karo as a very Bal Nigla, a person that was, all day and all night invested and encompassed just by the revealed aspects of Torah. In truth, Yosef Karo was a great Kabbalist, not in the calibers of the Ramak or the Arizal, as the story goes that he once asked the Arizal, "I want to learn Kabbalah by you. I want to be your student. I want to go up a level." Arizal told him, "It's not shaykh for you. It's not shaykh to your neshama." But he was persistent, and Arizal said, "Okay, have it your way." And he came to the Arizal Shir of Kabbalah, and Rav Yosef Karo slept the whole way through. And the Arizal told, "We'll come up after the Zir." He says, "You see, I told you." It's not shaykh to your neshama. But he was okay. He was a student of the Ramak. He was a big Kabbalist. To such a point, he had an angel that taught him. An angel. He had an angel that taught him Torah. And it's, I think, the only sefer that we have of an individual whose angel taught him Torah, and he wrote the teachings. It's called Magid Mishar. So in Parshas Vayakhel, this Magid would speak in Aramaic, which I find interesting because it says that Malachim don't know Aramaic. So this was an interesting Malach. He spoke in Aramaic, and it was written in Aramaic. And he writes over there the following. Is common. The reason why the Torah emphasized this is to teach us that only on Shabbos is it prohibited to light a fire, to ignite a fire. However, before Shabbos, it's mutter. Now, to us, this sounds silly. Of course it's mutter before Shabbos. Well, what's the chiddush there? The answer is we're living in a times where this is not such a chiddush. But go back not too long ago, we had hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Karaites that lived in different areas of the world. Egypt had a huge Karaite community from the times of the Rambam until 200 years ago. A huge Karaite community. And so too, there were Karaites that lived in different areas of Bavel and Eretz Yisrael. And they held, you can't have heat on Shabbos. Not that you can't light a fire on Shabbos. You can't have any benefit from heat. So they wouldn't eat any hot food. No hot foods on Shabbos. You're benefiting from heat. If it was like one of the recent Arctic storms that they had in Chicago, as they call it, global warming, which I don't understand, but the Arctic storm, so they would die. They wouldn't turn on, even for pikuach nefesh, they held you can't do. They would rather freeze to death than break Shabbos in their mistaken interpretation of this pasuk. So to completely negate them, the Torah brought this idea and says, the Shabbos, b'yom Shabbos, only on Shabbos itself is there an issur of lighting the fire, but before Shabbos there is no problem to do so. It is mutter to benefit from light that was lit before Shabbos. We then have the Pirush of the Kli Yakar, who writes that it's coming to teach us the following. It's coming to teach us that the issur of lighting a fire on Shabbos is only b'chomesh v'seichim, in all of your settlements. However, in the Beis Hamikdash it's mutter. We know that the menorah was lit every Shabbos, every day, including on Shabbos. And that's the igniting of fire. And it was nonetheless done on Shabbos, based on this pasuk that excludes the Beis Hamikdash from this issur of lighting a fire. Last but not least, writes the Reishis Chachma, student of the Ramak, and this is likewise recorded in the Shlach Kodesh. We're going to read it inside. That the message of this Varu Eish Chomesh V'Seichem is a command and a prohibition against anger. He writes the following. Amru b'tikunim. It states in the Zohar. Sha'koyes, he's buried here, but I mentioned a lot of the Sfas residents. Sakara, the Reishis Chachma. He's buried right next to the Arizal. He writes the following. Amru b'tikunim, it says in the Zohar, Sha'koyes, one who gets angry, Ki'ilu hidlik eishay shel Gehenim. It's considered, it's as if he has ignited the fire of Gehenna. And then he writes that someone who guarded Shabbos down here merits in the next world to have Shabbos guarded as well, that the light of Gehenna, even if he needs to go to Gehenna for purification, the light of Gehenna does not control. However, if a person gets angry, he ignites the fires of Gehenna. When it says it's saying don't ignite the supernal fire on Shabbos through the mortal fire of anger. And he says that this is a general pasuk teaching us against the prohibition against getting angry, especially on the day of Shabbos. Now, getting angry on Shabbos has the ripple effect that it turns on the heat in Gehenna. And we find the Gemara in Shabbos brings that this, because Shabbos is a time where, as we said before, there is no Gehenna, and it's supposed to be a time that we are relieved of anger, the Yetzer Hara knows he has 24-hour vacation when it comes Shabbos. So what does he do? The Gemara in Shabbos says he works very, very hard on Erev Shabbos to get some extra commission. So what does he do? He causes lots of stress in the family, in the household. And he first makes everyone feel very pressured. Everyone feels very stressed. He tells them, you know how much you have to do. It's Friday, it's the 7th of September, it's Gimel Elul, all these things together. It puts all this pressure and all this stress. And it says in the Gemara in Shabbos, especially near Bein Hashmashos. It's near the hour before Shabbos, where the Yetzer Hara, he's out at work, harder than ever, because he knows he's going to have a 24-day rest. So it says that's especially a time when everybody, every household has to be extremely careful not to allow the Satan to have his way. The Baron of Karlin is a tradition of Baron of Karlin. It says the following. The preparations that are done for Shabbos are affected by this anger. So if a person made the chulent with an angry attitude, then the chulent may come out a little sour, may come out a little, something may go a little off. Sometimes we see, somehow every Shabbos the food comes out different. The Baruch Kulin says it's the spiritual ingredients, it's the emotional ingredients that we're investing into it. So when the emotional ingredients are healthy, you get a very good tasting dish, even though it's all the same thing. But when it's not, then chas v'shalom, it can be not as well. What we're going to do for the next few minutes, and I want to save the bulk of this for next week, is go through, in general, that we now opened up the subject of anger, is go through in general what the Torah says about anger. And there's a few goals here. Number one is to explain from a Torah perspective and Chazal how severe is the Isser, is the prohibition of anger. Is it a real prohibition? It's just a thing that you shouldn't do, encourage not to do. It's just a drush on the Reishis Chachma on the Pasuk. How severe is it? What do the sages have to say about it? And also, most importantly, what are the sagely advices that we are given to have anger management? So we're going to begin. We're going to read from what the Alter Rebbe writes in his Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Masa Umatim, chapter 156. The Alter Rebbe there writes the following. This chapter 156, by the way, is a great chapter to learn. It's part of Shulchan Aruch, but it's really all about midas. It's all about character. It's a chapter. Not all the 613 mitzvahs made it into the Shulchan Aruch, and I'm not talking about those that are not relevant today, such as Korbanos. Even those that are relevant today, not all of them made it in, for one reason or another. And the Magen Avraham, in his commentary on this chapter, he took the effort of listing a lot of those omitted mitzvahs. A lot of them dealing with character traits, which didn't make it into the Shulchan Aruch, maybe because the Mechaber felt that it's more meant for Sifrei Musar, even though they're halacha. But nonetheless, in the Magen Avraham, he brings them down. The Alter Rebbe does that. He does the same thing, and he also brings it down and with a lot more elaboration. So regarding the midah of kas, he writes the following: V'chein hakas midah ra'a ma'od. Anger is a very bad trait. And it comes from arrogance. It comes from haughtiness. What's the connection? The connection is that a person feels anger usually comes from disappointment and expectations. A person has a certain expectation, whatever that expectation is. So first of all, number one, he had an expectation that was beyond proper expectation. He shouldn't have expected this to happen. So first he created for himself unrealistic expectations, which again comes from Gas HaRuach. The second aspect of the Gas HaRuach of the haughtiness comes when a person gets upset that his expectations were failed. And the person held certain expectations, and those expectations weren't met, so he gets very, very upset. As how can something that I want, or I need, or I desire not be fulfilled? The person has bittul. Says, who am I to receive this? Who am I to receive what I am expecting? And if he doesn't receive it, he's okay. He understands he's not worthy. But someone whose expectations are very high, and he feels very strongly about himself. So let's say, for example,
It's not always you. Expectations are not always you. If it's you,
okay, so I'll give an example. Okay, so throw out an example.
What?
throw out an example so we can
You wouldn't expect
just say.
someone else to steal your expectation.
I expected my spouse to have dinner ready when I came home. That's them doing something, but unexpected.
If you're expecting her, the wife, or the husband, the zir. What if you expect your child to make a bracha for him? I don't get anything but he's making a bracha.
Yeah, sure you do. Of course you gain. You gain it. Your child's going to the path of Torah mitzvahs,
I
and
know,
you want
but
that.
I'm talking about technically, the child does not do something that he's supposed to do that's good for him. Because I also
Correct.
gain by it and
Correct. So obviously,
etc.
obviously, we're not saying that people should have bittul to the point that they don't educate their children. They'll say, who am I to educate my children? I'm a nobody. Let my children walk all over me. But one thing, I just want to touch on that. I want to just touch on that. But here we're talking about anger. Anger will come. Why would I get angry if let's say, my child didn't do something correct? I'm getting angry for a variety of reasons. One of those reasons, one of those main reasons, are because he disobeyed me or disobeyed my expectations. Now that's already yeshus. I understand if you're upset that he disobeyed you because a child has to listen to his father, a child has to listen to his mother. Okay? If you're upset that he broke a halacha in Torah, but the same Torah that you're upset that he broke also prohibits you from getting angry. So is it really the fact that the Torah commands the child in kibbut of aim and you're really upset that he's translated kibbut of aim? Or is it nothing to do with Judaism? It's just a matter that I am the authoritative figure here and he's breaking that authority and that causes me to get angry. So where do we break this? The way we break a parent from getting angry or anyone from getting angry when expectations weren't kept.
You expect them for them to behave in a certain way. Not necessarily because you're their teacher or but you just thought that they would be a different Rama, you know what I mean? An expectation, and then it just doesn't come.
Right. So obviously you have to do whatever you can to get the class in order. But if a person would get angry due to that, once again, the Rebbe once said in the Fabregan regarding this, never said in the Fabregan, that he received complaints from the Mashpia that people don't listen to him in the Fabregan. People are talking. People don't listen. People are doing their own thing. He's speaking and everyone's talking. So Rebbe said in the Fabregan, who are you that you think everyone has to listen to you? Why do you think everyone has to listen to you? What do you think everyone has to listen to? Now, I don't think the Rebbe here was promoting discord in the classroom. They were saying, of course, there has to be discipline in the classroom, but not because you're the boss. It's because that's the way it applies, because there has to be respect from the teacher to the student, and there has to be, people, that's the way they learn. But don't take it personal. It's not personal, you and them, that you're on top of them. It's in order for the goal to be accomplished, and for them to have aim of their teacher, and for them to be able to be susceptible to learning something. But the moment we put ourselves personally into it and get personally offended, that's already taking it a little too far. Now, obviously, not all personal offenses are anger, but they definitely are what builds into anger eventually. We know how it works, the teacher or the parent or whoever it is, he sucks it in for 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, and then explodes like a time bomb. That's human nature. So every one of those personal effects was a part of the quality of that anger that became the time bomb. Okay? And so the Alter Rebbe here says, number one, where does anger come from? It comes from Gasus Harut. A person who's very humble, a person who's very bittul, he has a lot of self-nullification, he doesn't get angry, as he understands that who is he to get his expectations? First of all, who is he to have expectations? And if he has expectations, because of the Torah, because of the school, but it's not personal, it's not him. Who is he? It's only because of something that's required from the outside. And number two, so this is an example that, a spouse comes home, they expect the dinner to be ready and hot, and they come home and there's no dinner. So because they had an expectation, and because usually when you're hungry, you're not always in your right mind to begin with, and you're very hungry. Chemically, you're already very edgy and one of those bad mood swings. And you come home and lo and behold, you don't see the food. So because you had that expectation of the person and your midas are not exactly on the forefront right now of your mind, So a person can get upset, get angry at the spouse for not having prepared the meal. This again comes from Gasus Haruach. The person had bittul. The person viewed himself, told himself, okay, I don't know what's going to be, whether is food ready. I'm not going to get angry, not just because I'm going to control myself. I'm going to let the anger boil in my heart and then 2 days later explode, if it happens again. I held it in once, held it in twice. But because I feel I'm not, I don't feel that I am someone that important that everyone has to serve. This is a high level, I understand. But this is something that I'm just trying to explain how that anger and arrogance or yeshus are connected with each other. One is resultant of another. One is the root of another. Story with the father of the Pinchas Reitzes. His father, Repenich Shik of Shklov, was the Rav, the Dayan, chief rabbi of Shklov, the Bnei Brak of that time. And when his son, the Pinchas, became a chassid, so he didn't throw him out of the house. He was very wealthy. Didn't throw him out of the house. His son was a huge Talmud Chacham. But he was, he used to make fun, poke fun at him. What are you going to Chassidim for? What do they have to offer? What didn't you get out of by the Eilonishers, by my chinuch, by the chinuch of Shklov? Why do you have to go to the Chassidim? So he once asked him, what is it? Why do you keep on? What do you gain out of them? Torah you have by us. What do you need by them? So he said, by the Alter Rebbe, by Chassidim, with Chassidus, we learn how to work on our midas. He laughed and he said, we have Sifrei Musar already. We have Reishis Rachma, Orchis Tzadikim, Osivas Yesharim. We have all that stuff. What do you need by Chassidus? He says, no, you don't understand. When I say work on our midas, it's on a totally different caliber than what Musar has to offer. So he says, okay, let's give me a wager, give me a test. Let's see. So he said, I'm going to give you a test to work on the midah of kas. Told his father. You pick all the Sifrei Musar you want to work on the midah of kas, and I want to see if it's going to work. So the father worked really hard, and he opened up Reishis Chachma and all the different books on kas. And he learned about it, became very bucky, and Mamish worked on himself day in, day out. And the son wouldn't tell him when he would test it, but the son privately went over to the wagon driver who was in charge of taking the Rav of Shklov to all of his different appointments and speeches that he would make. And he gave him a few pennies, he gave him a little money, he bribed him, and he told him this, in the end, my father agreed to this, because I have ability to, we're in the midst of a bet. When he comes down for his 4 o'clock shir to give a shir in the main shul, refused to take him. Just refused to take him. And if he asks you why, just don't say. He said, I don't feel like going today. Just don't answer. Just don't take him. So the Rav comes down. He just prepared for about an hour, 2 hours for his weekly shir to all the Lamdanim of the city. And he comes to his wagon. He walks. He goes inside, and the driver's not moving. He tells the wagon driver, "No, let's go. Let's go." And he says, "Kvod Rav, not today. Not today. I'm tired." He says, "What do you mean not today? I have a shir." He says, "Rav, not today." And he remembers, wow, I'm working on anger. He's getting very upset. He controls himself. He tries to talk him into it. He says, no. He refuses to go anywhere. The Rav gets out of the wagon and goes back home. After this happened, that evening, the Pinchas Reitzes meets with his father, and he tells him, by the way, the whole story that happened with the wagon driver, I set it up. It was to test you. So he said, I knew it. And guess what? I won. You can even ask the wagon driver. I didn't say a bad word to him. I didn't threaten to fire him. Nothing. I took it in, and I didn't do anything to him. I just left. Very respectful. So then the Pinchas asked his father, but tell me something. How did you feel inside? He says, inside you don't want to know. But what I wanted to do to this guy, the audacity, do you know how long I spent preparing for this year? The rub of the city. It's the audacity. I pay his salary to tell me no. But because of the Sifrei Musar, I controlled myself. So Pinchas Reitzes told him that with Chassidus, you wouldn't have those feelings. Even the feelings are worked out. So there's a difference between controlling the anger, meaning not letting it explode, putting it inside the jar, and not having it to begin with, not having those expectations to begin with, or not having not having the expectation that it must be met, and if not, then all breaks loose. We'll discuss this more next week, and let's show this point. Let's continue a few more lines. And therefore, from this midah, one is to distance himself completely to the opposite extreme. In the Rambam's Hilchos Deis, and likewise in this chapter 156, different character traits are mentioned, and there it says always take the middle ground. Don't be too much to the right, too much to the left. Don't give too little tzedakah, don't give too much tzedakah. Don't make yourself poor. Right? And every person should be in the middle ground. When it comes to anger, a person should be completely to the opposite extreme. He should completely run away from it to the opposite extreme. Even if he needs to get angry at the nation in order to separate them from a sin, a teacher teaching in school, and to bring them back to the path of good, he should only make believe he's getting angry. He shouldn't really be angry. He should put up a show. He should go to acting school, know how to look angry. But he shouldn't really get angry inside. Inside, he should be completely calm within himself, but only show and make believe he's angry in order for them to shape up. The Amru Chachamim and the sages state, Chachamim state that whoever gets angry, it's as if he's serving idolatry. We will next week explain this in Tanya, and Igeres Chafei and length. It explains this, why it's considered like idolatry. There's a lot of Yisurim that we like embellishing their severity with different comparisons. Regarding how many Yisurim does it say this is the worst one in the Torah? How many of them have you heard of it? There's a lot of them. We like to embellish a lot of times, but so this you can either view as this is an exaggeration. I mean, are you serious? Idolatry, like the one like you get killed for, like bowing down to idols, the worst in the Torah. That's how bad anger is, or is it just an exaggeration to show that it's really bad? But of course it's not. Or is it somehow really like idolatry? Let's next week go into this. This is what Cham said. The focus of the Vidazar Mazalis. And it's written in the Sefer Kabbalah. Now Torah writes this down. V'nishmasi mistalekas mimenu. He loses his neshama. When a person gets angry, his nefesh elikis says, "Goodbye, I'm out of here." Shmasi mistalekas mimenu shenem atoyif nafshi ba'apis. It says in Iyov that one who gets angry, ba'api means in his wrath, toyif nafshi, he loses his soul. Next week, we'll go into this. We'll explain in Kisvei Arizal exactly what happens spiritually during a time of anger, how one neshama leaves, another neshama comes back, what type of nefesh elikis do we get afterwards, why it affects this to happen. This is all again in the severity of understanding how this is something very severe, and then also we'll go into different eitzes that are brought down the Chazal. That's it for tonight, and let's show next week we will have part 2 of this series. In the meantime, no one can get angry until we're...
I have a very peripheral question. The thing about the Gehenna fire, if the fire was burning before Shabbos, there wouldn't be any reason for it not to continue burning.
In heaven?
There's the halacha of not lighting a fire on Shabbos when it's fine.
Yeah, continual fire.
You have a
continuous
black
fire.
right?
But you're saying, how can we have a blech on or a fire on if we say, right? So I said it. The way I said it is that the fire is turned off on Shabbos, but it's possible the fire is still on. They just kick everyone out. The jail is still there. Everyone's kicked out. Everyone's gone.
Everybody goes out of here and his face.
I'm just thinking, who runs Gehenna? Hashem is run by Jews. Jews don't want to have stam fuel wasting, money wasting. So turn it on. No one's there.